Good afternoon. This is Pat Shea from WICHE, and I have with me Anna Gallus, who is our ICE PIC manager, and Kay Holstrom, who is our administrative manager. My role here at WICHE is as the director of the Academic Leadership Initiatives, and one of our projects is to support institutions and exchanges with this Internet Course Exchange platform that we're going to be talking about today. So throughout this broadcast, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat box, and we'll be watching for them and try to answer them as we go along. So in the agenda today, what we're going to talk about, first of all, is about WICHE ICE, what it is and who uses it, and then we'll spend quite a bit of time on how the ICE platform works, because we're sure you want to know whether it will work well for you or not. Then we'll talk about some pricing models and what those what the costs are associated with those, and then also look more broadly at some of the benefits of participating in an Internet Course Exchange, and then finally share some contacts with you for more information. So first of all, what is WICHE ICE? It's a platform that can be used by consortia to offer online courses to other members of a consortium. And through WICHE ICE, or the ICE platform, students can access a high-quality online courses and programs taught by other member institutions. And so rather than having students out searching around on the internet and taking courses which may not be ones that can transfer or articulate to your programs, you are giving them a better student service by letting them know which courses you've reviewed in advance and which ones you recommend for them and how they will count towards their program of studies. And so the users are consortia, and they can be 2-year institutions only, or a combination of 2-year and 4-year. They can be a combination of public and private, and they can be located in the WICHE states, or in the case of Arkansas, beyond. And another consortium that we have that is running on WICHE ICE, which Anna actually operates, and I can tell you a little bit more about later, called Nexus. It has a combination of, I believe, public and private 4-year institutions in many states across the U.S. So am I right about that, Anna, that you have public and private in your Nexus exchange?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how ICE works. So in the ICE model, there is both a role for a teaching institution and a role for an enrolling institution. And institutions can be one or the other, or they can do both. And so let's look at the role of a teaching institution. Basically, if we start in the upper left-hand corner and when we go counterclockwise, actually it doesn't exactly work that way, so you'll just kind of have to follow me. It teaches, the teaching institution decides which courses to offer on the exchange, and it decides how many seats it will make available to other institutions in the consortium, or in your case an exchange, and what the price per enrollment is going to be. And that price is typically a standard price or a common price across the exchange, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And so the teaching institution decides what to teach, how many seats to make available, how much it's going to cost. They teach that course, and then they report the grade through the Witchy ICE platform. And when Anna shows you the sort of the back end, that will go into a little bit more detail. So if that's what the teaching institution does, what does the enrolling institution do? Well, the enrolling institution decides which courses it is interested in making available to its students and how many seats it wants to reserve in those particular courses. It creates a shadow course in its institution catalog, and then students at that institution can register for the course there, they can pay the tuition and fees, they will find the grade for that course recorded on their transcript at that institution as though it were taught by that particular home institution. And there is one, in one model we'll talk about, institutions can, the exchange can either run their own billing system or Witchy will run the billing system. And in this case, what happens is that Witchy bills the enrolling institution for the number of students who took courses at any of the institutions in the exchange, and then rebates money to the teaching institution for those students. And that's done on a term-by-term basis. So each consortium that Witchy ICE supports has its own dashboard, which is its entrance to its catalog, and a series of reports. And you can see here a couple of different examples. In some of the reports that you'll see listed, and I know this is probably a little small, but some of the reports that are listed there are standard, so everyone has them. But in other cases, if a consortium or an exchange says we really need a report that has some different information in it, like for example Nexus, which does some work with clusters in its exchange, then there are some additional reports that you would access through that dashboard. So now I'm going to turn it over to Anna, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about how the ICE platform works behind the scenes.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name, as Pat has already said, is Anna Gallus, and my role is working primarily with the Witchy ICE database system. So I provide trainings to consortia and or the representatives of institutions that log into the system on a regular basis, and then I work to support what's happening inside the database system if there are issues. So what you see here is a screenshot of a dashboard, and they can be tailored to the individual consortia or group or project as it's set up. The database system is housed in a secure encrypted server, so data is not, and it's broken down, so it's secure, and student information can't be linked to addresses or emails. That type of information is protected. Can you just back up one screenshot, please?
Sure.
And in this dashboard you see 6 sections, and these are the primary sections that you operate in when logging into the system. There is another help desk section as well. Next slide. So when an institution is added to the database system, we have a profile, and in that you put the contact information, and the user is given email and login password protected access to the system, and they identify the key representatives to the project or program and enter that information. The campus enrollment information is linked to the title and logo of the institution. So for example, in this slide we see Flathead Valley Community College, and if you click click on that link in the course catalog, it brings up a screen that provides the contact information. So anytime you read the details about the course and you want to be able to contact them, you would just click on the hyperlink next to the logo. So adding course information. Within the course catalog or within the database system, you can add new courses. And here, once a course is entered, you don't have to re-enter it again. You just manage the seats each term to activate it in the course catalog. Here we identify the fields. These fields can be tailored depending on the project or program, but we have the basics here in our general catalog that you're looking at, the course title, the course number. You'd identify what program it belongs to, also your CIP. You can identify that, and if you need, you can always check with your registrar on how a course might be categorized at your institution. And then you're filling out the rest of those fields with course details, if there's a link for the catalog, what prerequisites might be required, method of instruction, and so on. So that is entered and saved, and then you would go back to the section to modify and edit seats or add seats to the catalog. So seat information, this is where we activate the number of seats you're willing to offer in a particular course and for a particular term, so it shows up in the catalog. You'd have these fields that you would go ahead and complete. Sometimes we get questions about seat deadline and when to return the seats by, and usually that is dictated by your deadline dates for applications. When you need to enroll students, you want your seats returned prior to that, so you're able to open up those seats to other students that might be coming within your institution or from other areas. Then you would, at the bottom, we have the exchange price, and depending on what your group agrees upon, you would identify the appropriate cost exchange. Once the seats are activated, we can view the course catalog, and here's two shots, Montana University System, and it lists their catalog that they had available for, I believe it was fall of 2016, and then for Nexus, the Nursing Education Exchange, we can see a screenshot of the course listings for spring of 2017. You'll notice the numbers for the courses, the ELCT 107 or NURS 780, those are hyperlinks, so it's going to, if you click on those, it takes you to the course details, which we filled in when we created the course originally. And from there, when you're in the course details, you can actually request seats as a home or enrolling institution. So talking about that hyperlink, so we have another shot here where we see the course number, the credits, the term it's offered, the institution. If you click on the course number, it's going to give you those course details. I spoke earlier about the logo being linked to campus enrollment information, and you can see that at the top of that screenshot, and then it scrolls down to the course details, what the course description is, what the requirements are, method of instruction, etc. At the very bottom, you see place a seat request. So if you have 3 or 4 students that are interested in a course, that's where you're going to click that. From there, it opens a new screen where you're able to enter the number of seats you're going to request. Once you place that seat request, an email notification is sent to the teaching institution. And that way they are notified and are able to log into the system and grant that seat request back to you. When that is done, you will receive an email request or an email notification back as the home institution notifying you the seats were made available. So from there, you've had seats that have been granted, and how do we enroll students into that? There's a couple different ways this can happen. First, you can enter each student individually and create under the student management section where you create student profiles. When a student is entered into the database system, you only have to add them once. They can be enrolled in multiple courses over a period of time, but you don't have to keep entering them every time. It creates a drop-down menu, as you can see under the student management section, where you would select the student to enroll in a course. Also, you can upload, if you have multiple students as well, using CVS format files to enter into the system, where you can have multiple students with this data into a particular course. So students have been enrolled, and there's a couple different ways you can look at them in the student roster section. Under the student manager, you have your course rosters. So every time you enroll students in a course, it's going to, once seats have been granted in the course, it's going to be listed under your student management section. The first screenshot shows rosters, and that you have a teaching institution that's teaching the courses, and then you're enrolling students at another institution. If you want to put the student's name on the actual roster when you're enrolling students, you would either click the course roster or add new students. Here we see screenshots where we can upload multiple students under the import section, or we use the drop-down menu to select the individual student you would enroll in the course. As the enrolling institution, you are able to add the student to the roster and remove the student from the roster, depending on the deadline dates. And once a course or once a grade has been entered into the roster, you may not unenroll the student anymore. As the teaching institution, when you look at the student management section and look at the roster, you'll see the courses that you are teaching. And if you click on the roster, you'll see a list of students. Students will be coming from multiple institutions on your roster. And here we see that you can enter that final grade for a particular institution or for the student. One thing I'd like to say, as an enrolling school or enrolling institution, you only see the students you put into that course. So even though the teaching institution might have 20 students in a course, and only 5 are from one particular institution, the enrolling school can only see those students, where the teaching institution will see all 20 students on their rosters. Grades. Once a course is completed and the grades have been posted at the teaching institution, the campus staff coordinator would or the campus ICE PIC would log into the system and enter that final grade for the course. From there, then the enrolling institution can go ahead and log in and pull down that information to be uploaded into their own student information systems. Again, once that grade is entered, the student may not be unenrolled and it becomes a permanent record in the system. So then you're not able to delete that course from the system as well. So the student holds everything in the database system once that grade's entered. So if you run into issues, which with databases it does happen on occasion, we recently added a help desk on our control panel. There's a little section where you can submit a ticket request to address an error message that you might come across when you're in the system. We've had great response when those things, in the sense that we get timely response from our programming folks that help us maintain the system. In addition, if there are ever issues as we're launching the project, my role is to help assist with that.
Okay, I wonder if we should just stop for a second and before we get into costs, and find out if there are any questions that the group has for Anna or for me about how the ICE platform works. And we'll just give you a minute or two. You can type right into the chat box if you'd like. Looks like Jane has a question. Wondering, oh, it looks like she had an audio, but she's got it back, I believe. Kay, Jane's asking if we can unmute them, which I think we can with this small a group. Should we try that?
Yeah, we can unmute. Jane is available now. I can unmute everyone if you'd like.
It creates some, maybe just one at a time because it's creating some static. So we'll ask people, there's a little, next to your names under the attendee list, you can see a place where you can click on and raise your hand, and then we'll call on people in turn, if that's okay. So Jane, I'm sorry, do you have a question?
Our registrar does, yes.
Okay.
My question, if I am a teaching institution and I have a class there, I've got students enrolling in that class, am I delivering the class through ICE?
No, you're
using delivering through my regular Blackboard.
You're delivering through your regular Blackboard, and so thanks for asking that question, because some registrars want the students listed in the SIS system in order to have access to the library or whatever supports that course. Other registrars prefer that they only have the students coming from an enrolling institution. If they're the teaching institution, they only have them listed in their learning management system. So it's up to each individual registrar about how you want to handle that. You would work with the individual on your campus, called what we call them the ICE program coordinator. The ICE pick is the individual who gets trained on how to put data into the ICE system, and works with the registrar in terms of where that student data gets recorded on the campus then. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I have a question. Are we still live?
We are.
Okay. We have a little music literally there. Hi, Hannah Norton. I'm Dean for our online college here at Arkansas Tech, and my question is, within the interface, one of the things in terms of talking to partner institutions was it appears from what you were discussing, and maybe this isn't the case, but there was like one cost. Is it allowable within the interface to have each institution to have its own cost?
You can have your own costs, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes about the business rules.
Okay,
yeah.
Sounds great. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, well, let's move on, and we'll stop again for questions. So in terms of what does it cost to use WikiICE is basically the purpose of this slide. So I know from talking to Jane, you're not a formal consortium. You're a group of institutions that are agreeing to participate in, I guess, an exchange, and at this point in time you don't have any kind of formal regulations about that, although as you move forward you may want to establish some kind of regulations about how you're going to operate. So just to make it easy to understand, I'm going to call you a consortium. So the fee for using WikiICE for a consortium or a group of institutions like yours is $7,500 a year if you have an individual at your consortium has a lead individual who is the individual that we interface with. We train that individual. That individual then trains all of the ICE picks at the other institutions and serves as the sort of the expert on how ICE works. And that's a role that Anna plays for Nexus. She has two roles. She is working as that individual for Nexus, and then we have some of her time that we have her working with us as an individual who helps train consortium and individuals at campuses in other consortia users of the platform. So then the other one, which sounds more like what would be likely in your case, is that there's a flat fee of $5,000 plus $1,000 for each participating campus. And that enables our staff to train each individual ICE pick at each campus and to be able to provide ongoing support to those individuals as they move through this. And because you're not formally established as a consortium and have no paid staff for a consortium, it seems like that's the category you would fall into. So there's that basic dues cost, which is an annual cost, and then there is a fee for administrative services, and that can vary depending upon what services you choose to have. So if you want your site white labeled so it looks like Arkansas's Exchange, which is sort of, if you go to the Nexus site, it looks like a Nexus Exchange you'll see in small font somewhere, powered by Witchy ICE, but otherwise you don't know it's a Witchy ICE product. Or if you want us to do billing services or other kinds of services, create some custom reports or something like that, then there would be some additional fees for that. So on the next slide, for example, there is a one-time setup fee, and that's $2,500. It takes approximately 2 months to get it set up, and what you get for that is this customized look and feel for the catalog, and just an analysis of, you know, whether the standard reports are going to work for you or if you need something additional. So you have a dedicated catalog. Each consortium or each group, each exchange has its own catalog. We have the ICE pick training, whether it's of one individual or it's multiple individuals across the campuses, and an ongoing support through the help desk, and Kay and Anna are also available for specific kinds of questions that may not be technical in nature. Are there any questions about those fees? Okay, Kay?
Oh, I think Jane has a
sorry,
question.
Jane.
Yeah, Jane has a question. So
I had a question. This is Hannah again. How often, so this catalog that's created, the dedicated catalog, is that something that, how often could that be updated if there were changes in terms of us adding courses? Is that something annually, or what are the options for that? Or is it a one-time?
You can add well, Anna, do you want to answer that?
Sure. You can add courses at any time. Typically when a group starts up, they kind of agree on, you know, deadline dates based on each term, and when they're going to, you know, activate seats and courses prior to that. We've found with the Nexus Exchange, for example, if we can post courses for a year in advance, knowing that budgets change and faculty may change and a course may be pulled down, the further out, it's the more opportunity to promote and advertise the course for enrollment. But a course can be added at any time.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Kay, let's move on and talk a little bit about billing options.
Okay, I'm Kay Hallstrom, and I do the administrative workings behind ICE, and that entails the invoicing and that sort of thing. And so this is a couple of examples of how the invoicing can work. The ICE system generates a unique number for each student. So on the invoice, you will not see any student identification numbers or anything like that. You can choose whether or not you want to have the student name to show up on the invoice, or we can just have the system-generated number, if that was what we like. When it comes to the billing, there is a 15% administration fee on the wholesale or the retail price, and this can be paid in two different ways. This can be paid by the enrolling institution, and in that case, WICHE invoices the enrolling institution, and when the check is received, the 15% WICHE administrative fee is retained by WICHE, and the remainder is then sent on to the teaching institution. And the second way is the fee can be billed to a third party, excuse me, like a system office, for example. In that case, then WICHE would invoice the enrolling institution. We keep track of the enrollments, send the full amount to the teaching institution, and then each semester we would bill the third party for the administrative fee based on that enrollment information that took place during that time. To generate the invoices, it's like Anna said, we usually have dates that are agreed upon. It's usually the last drop date of whichever institution has the latest drop date, and then the invoicing will take place after that.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about business rules now, because that would dictate how you make decisions about some of these things. So and each individual consortium or exchange has their own business rules. The ICE database is designed to be very flexible so that it would accommodate different ways that institutions operate. So Nexus, for example, operates, as I said, with Anna as a lead organizer for it, very separate from another consortium that would rely more heavily on WICHE staff. So let's look at the next slide, because it really lays out what I consider to be critical players in making your exchange work. You should have someone, and I think Jane Jones contacted me, so I'm going to say that Jane is this individual at this point in time. I realize that you guys everybody has different roles over there, and Jane has agreed to coordinate our making this presentation. But each exchange really needs somebody at the helm who is going to be the primary liaison with us, that's going to tell us about a change in business rules or change in calendar or whatever across all of the participating institutions. And that individual is going to be the person who schedules a training session. Typically we do a group training session initially with the ICEPICs, and then we can do some individual training with each ICEPIC, and that's done remotely in a web-based environment or an audio link. And then that I think it's really important that this individual have some regular meetings with the individual at each campus, the ice pick coordinator, who is who can say, you know, these are the deadlines we're going to operate on. For example, Kay just talked to you about the last drop date as being an important deadline, but also, you know, what are the deadlines for putting grades into the platform so that other schools can pick them up, and any other needs or guidelines that you're unclear about. That individual would be the one who would be the liaison to our staff. And then that individual also would sort of monitor the activity across the exchange. You know, are you seeing a lot of course exchanges, or just a few, or some institutions doing a lot and others not? Is that because they don't understand it, or because they don't have a need, or you know, what is the reason for what's going on there? And that individual or that campus might do the billing for the rest of the institutions. So that's sort of the role of that consortium exchange manager. Then there's an ice pick coordinator at each campus, and this individual works with the staff to determine what courses and how many seats in those courses they want to offer. I think what works really well is if institutions can do some initial brainstorming about what courses they want to make available to other institutions, and then create that inventory of courses in the system. And then once they do that, they're just really on a term-by-term basis determining how many seats to make available. So it's getting all the data entry over sort of in the beginning, and then making the continuous upkeep of those, the number of seats available for export, simplified, or importing. And so they enter the course data, they enter the student data, they make requests for seats, and they confirm the seats, and they enter the data into the SIS system at their home campus if a student has enrolled at another institution in the exchange. So there's, someone asked earlier about, do we all have to have the same price? Well, let me talk about some different pricing models, and then you would have to decide what works best for you. We've had a lot of experience with consortium setting a wholesale price, what they call a common wholesale price. And so for each year they might set a price, and all the institutions participating in that exchange agree that that's the price they're going to charge each other for that seat. And that price will include all the fees, so that a student doesn't sign up for a course at another institution and then find out, oh, there's an extra $150 technology fee. You know, we encourage you to put all of those fees into that common wholesale price. And it may include the WICHE administrative fee, depending on how your exchange decides to set up its business rules. So for example, let's say you're offering courses and you're charging $150 a credit hour, and that's pretty common across your institutions, or you agree that that's a price you will use. And so for a 3-hour course, then that's a $450 fee, and so then you would pay 15% of that fee if WICHE were to do the billing processing for you. You could either decide that your teaching institution is going to say, okay, well, that 15% can come out of that, our 450, the 15% can come out of that, because these are seats that we're making money on, not maybe as much money as we would make if we enrolled students directly in those seats, but the reality is we weren't going to fill those seats, and so we're earning more money by going through the exchange, even though it's a little less than we would if we enrolled them directly. So that's one option. The other option is to add to the $450 the amount of the administrative fee, and then that's the fee that would be charged to the other institution, to the enrolling institution. Now the enrolling institution may charge that fee, the same fee that you're advertising, to the student, or more or less. So it depends. If the fee is significantly less, if the $450 is significantly less than what you typically charge students, you could, let's say, rather than it being $450, it would typically be $600 for a course. You could charge the student the $600, in which case you're making some additional money that helps to support your student services and your IcePick and that kind of thing. It's really, the business rule is something you really have to decide on your own. If the $450 is more than what you typically charge your students, you might have a grant, or you might have some other way to subsidize it. So you charge the student $300, and then that additional $150 you're either going to make up out of some grant money or some program money, because it's a critically important course to offer your students. Maybe somebody's out on sabbatical and you have no other way to support it, and so you make that decision that that's in the best interest of your students to charge in that kind of way. Totally up to you what kind of decision you make about that. So let's go to the next one. The next one is a negotiated wholesale price, and in this case it's a situation where someone might say, now I do have a faculty member out on sabbatical. I don't have anybody else that can pick up that course. I need for another whole section to be taught. So I'm going to contract with another institution, or I'm going to have another partner institution, and the two of us are going to contract with another institution to offer a whole additional course. And we're going to negotiate what that price might be, because we have we're providing a lot of volume here, number of enrollments for this institution, and so we're going to create a contract in which we say we guarantee you X number of students, and we're going to pay you a certain fee for that many students. And again, whatever those stipulations are in that contract is up to you. And then again, which you would either do the billing for you in that situation, or you could do the billing yourself. And so then this retail price model is where the courses, whoops, sorry, I think how did we go back here?
I can go back.
Okay, good. No, I'm totally out of the site. Maybe that didn't happen to anybody else. Are you still seeing the slides, Kay?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, must be just my computer. So at any rate, let me just catch where I am here a second. I was about ready to turn it over to Anna, but there's a retail price model, and in that retail price model, you're charging different prices for different kinds of courses. For example, business courses often cost more, thank you, and therefore you may have those courses cost more than some other courses that are at a lower cost. So, any questions about those kind of pricing models? They're explained in our one of our handbooks that we have that will point. I think, Jane, we probably gave you the link to that earlier. Let's turn it over then to Anna and talk about some benefits for students more broadly from exchanges.
Okay, So, benefits for students. Obviously, convenience and flexibility of online delivery, having access to a wider range of courses and or programs, and depending on the level that the course is being offered at, for example, graduate level or doctoral level, faculty expertise becomes really important, and having access to that if you're looking for a niche type of course, that faculty expertise becomes a real selling point to the student. Seamless access to financial aid, advising, and transcripted credit at the home institution. So the student is still enrolling and paying the home school. It's just how the student is accessing the learning management system at the teaching institution that would be different. Overcoming barriers to enrollment. So they're not, oftentimes students reside in one area and may have families or jobs that they're also involved in while they're going to school. And again, being able to take the courses online really helps address that barrier. Improve degree completion and retention. I can tell you for sure that our evaluation data with, we survey students at the conclusion of each term for the Nexus program, and without having access to Nexus courses, 90% of the students would be delayed in their program plans of study. So it really, having this access of collaborative institutions offering courses through an exchange, we're able to prove that it's helping students meet that degree to completion. Okay, benefits for faculty. You're able to teach a broader range of students. We've had feedback where faculty will comment that different students from different areas really can enrich and broaden the perspective in student discussions. There's opportunities for faculty to collaborate with other faculty at different institutions. You may be able to even teach more courses in your area of expertise, and also being able to, produce better educated students by advising them on the best courses. So if you've got a good sized catalog, or and there's multiple institutions teaching in particular areas, as a faculty or an advisor, you're really going to be able to look at what's available and help that student better decide what's going to really meet their needs in their area of study. From an institution's perspective, you're expanding the course offerings and programs that are available to students without necessarily hiring a lot of faculty to do that. You expedite students' time to degree. It's a cost-effective option. You can facilitate academic planning, knowing that you're able to arrange courses for students that you may not necessarily be able to offer at your institution. Or if your certain courses are already full at your institution, you might be able to expand based on demand. You can share faculty in hard-to-staff disciplines. There are some programs that are much smaller. Keep low-growth programs financially viable by trying to offer their courses through the exchange and fill those seats that would otherwise go unfilled. And review courses before students take them. So oftentimes you can identify a course that you would be interested in offering to your students and request to review that syllabi to ensure that it's going to meet your criteria at your institution for that particular degree or program area that the student might be enrolled in.
So thanks, Anna. I was going to talk just a little about this collaborative marketplace that I think we're increasingly getting into, or will, as resources don't increase for higher education as significantly as they've done in some years past. But there's a graphic here that's been adapted from a book called The Long Tail, Why the Future of Business is Selling Less of More. And the idea here is, if you think about enrollment, you have a lot of core courses in which you have a lot of enrollment, but then you have sort of this long tail of courses that you offer, and you have relatively low enrollments in those courses. So if you aggregate the supply of courses and the supply of students, though, across a consortium or exchange, what happens is that you're likely to be able to offer more courses in a specialty area where an instructor had a problem even filling a course previously and sometimes had to cancel the course. Maybe that course will now fill up more than once, and maybe that instructor will have an opportunity to teach an advanced course in that area because pulling from a broader range of students across your whole area. And so then another opportunity that comes about is an opportunity to create an all-star curriculum across the consortium. You might have experts, or your institution might be known for being really strong in particular academic areas. And so there may be an opportunity to have faculty from multiple institutions work together to create a new program or to teach specific courses that just then gives this exchange, you know, a national reputation for offering some type of unusual program. So, for example, you know, there are lots of institutions now looking for ways to put together programs in cybersecurity or artificial intelligence or different niches of geriatric studies. And maybe you don't have that expertise at all of your institutions. So by working together, you could create that across institutions. Just an example that I like to give is one that was in social work with University of Wyoming and one of the Alaska institutions, and they were both offering a social work program. I think it was a doctoral program in social work, and the problem was that the programs were small and they could only offer one of the courses, which was a prerequisite, once a year. And so what happened was the instructor from Wyoming and from Alaska got together and said, why don't you teach it in the fall, I'll teach it in the spring, well, because they compared syllabi, they worked together on some of the units. They each used their own style, their own methodology and all of that, but they agreed to a common set of learning outcomes. And they said, let's let our students take it when it's most convenient for them so they can stay on track to graduation. And it worked very well for them, and I think that's a great example of one of the ways that you can get some efficiency across the consortium and increase your institutional metrics on student completions. So Kay, I'm going to turn it over to you now to talk about some other opportunities.
Sure. Some of the ones that we have in the cost savings category is that you can develop new programs with other institutions. You can partner and you can share those expenses. So maybe one institution will develop, say you wanted to do a whole new program, and one institution could develop some of the courses and the other institution could develop other courses that will help complete the program. You're not having to hire faculty to cover the entire program. You would only have to cover part of it, and then the other institution would cover part. And that really can help in your bottom line. And then when it comes to students being able to make those academic choices and reduce their debt, it's like Pat was talking about. If as we all know, there are those courses that fill up quickly or they're only offered in certain semesters, and having other choices, students can take the course at another institution and not lose the momentum towards their degree completion, which helps to reduce their debt. And when it comes to grant funding, we have found, working with various funders, that a lot of them are emphasizing collaborative efforts. They would like to see more institutions working together than just one institution asking for funding. And so this gives more power to you in your negotiations and trying to get grants from various institutions, various funders. This is the three of us with our names and our phone numbers and our email addresses if you would like to contact any of us. And then finally, we have a couple of resources on our website. And the first one is the WICHE ICE Operations Manual. And this is mostly a manual that gives you a broad picture of how ICE works. But the user manual is a little bit more geared towards the ICE picks. It gives the specific instructions on the entering students and entering courses, generating reports, that sort of thing. So both of those are available on our website. Do we have any questions?
If you want to click on your hand over in the column, we can unmute you if you would prefer to ask us verbally.
All right, Jane?
Just was wondering when a recording of this webinar might be available. We had some people who had conflicts come up at the last minute, and I'd like to be able to offer them the opportunity to watch this. And personally, I might want to use it as a refresher myself.
Sure. And could you see the slides okay, Jane, or was the writing really small?
That was very good, very good.
Oh, good. I don't know, Kim, are you on? Can you tell us about how long it takes when we might have the recording available?
I could probably get it to them today. The file's too large to email, though, so we'll have to figure out where to put it. The only thing I wouldn't be able to do is closed captioning. If they need that, I would need to have
that would.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have to figure out where we can post this so you can retrieve it, and we'll send you an email to that effect.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, are there other questions?
Not from us. I believe we're good here at Arkansas Tech.
Okay, good. Well, we enjoyed having the opportunity to learn a little bit about what you're thinking about over there from Jane. Certainly think that this is the wave of the future.
Muted.
Sorry,
I'm
Pat.
unmuted.
Yep.
That's okay. So anyways, we wish you the best of luck in figuring out how you might want to operate your exchange, and we're here to help you if we can. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.